What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be reviewing Ex Libris, designed by Adam P. McIver and published by Renegade Game Studios. Now I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who will tell you more about the game itself.
It's a competitive game. Can you believe it? We're reviewing a competitive game.
We are striving for more diversity on the channel. I think we've kind of found our sweet spot in terms of competitive games that we don't drive each other crazy.
Yeah, so this game is intended for ages 10 and above. It's a 1 to 4 player game, and it plays in about 45 minutes. I think that depends on if you're playing, how many players you're playing, and how fast decision making the people you're playing with can, how fast they can make decisions.
Yes. So I've played this a few times at 4 players. We've played it at 4 and at 2 players. My first play at 4 players was close to a 2-hour game. It really shouldn't have taken that long, but it was everyone just figuring out the rules. There's also some reasons that it took that long, and we'll get into that when we get to our review. Now, what are you doing in Ex Libris? Let's change things up. Julie, what are you doing in Ex Libris?
Well, you're building a library. You're trying out basically to replace the librarian who, I don't know what happened to the librarian in this.
Well, we'll just say that they died under fantastical circumstances because it is a fantasy library.
So you're basically competing against your fellow teammates to build the perfect library based on the town's requirements. So you have different types of librarians that have different, we'll call them powers, different abilities. And you have specific books that are your specialty. And then there are books that are what the town is looking for. And then you get extra points for basically different things in the game that allow you to build the best library.
Yeah, and we'll talk about all of that when we go into scoring. But teammates, I think you meant to say competition.
Yes, I meant the people you are playing with.
All right, so with that being said, I think it's time for us to grab our drinks.
Mm-hmm. You're still my best friend. Don't even try it.
Okay, I was going to say best friend, but I was like, what, is there like a bookworm thing that we could say at this point?
No.
Fellow bookworm?
No.
Okay, best friend.
Okay, take it to the table.
And take it to the table. Now, I'm wondering...
Or to the bookshelf.
To the bookshelf? Oh, you know what? We can take it to the library. There are board games at some libraries.
There you go.
Here we go. Now we're going to take a look at the components for Ex Libris. Now we'll start, as we usually do, with that one component that is never on camera, the rule book. Now, in the rule book, unfortunately, there isn't a quick reference guide. There is rather a large reference guide in the back of the rule book for all the different locations as well as the libraries. So everything that you need right there. And the front part of the rulebook covers everything that you need with regards to setting it up, explaining the cards, and how you're going to score points. Now next, we'll take a look at the game board. You actually don't really need the game board. It's fairly long. It's more of just a reminder as to how you're going to score, a place to place the prominent works and the banned book cards, but it does serve its purpose. Now, we talked about the reference cards. Well, not reference cards. These are the reference cards that you get, but the reference section of the rulebook. So what you have is a whole slew of these, and there's multiples of them. That way you can hand them out to all the different players for all the different locations. They are just sort of like a flimsy sheet of paper. I'm not too happy about that. I would have liked something a little bit more substantial. They do feel very fragile, easy to damage, and not happy with the quality of those. Next, we've got a whole stack of book cards. Now, we're just going to take a quick look at some of them. So as you can see, you get the different types of books. You can tell by the symbols. If you want to read the names, so examples of examples, they are quite clever. You also have the letter as well as how many of the cards there are. So as you can see with regards to the letter E, this is card 6 of 7. Look at the next one. This is H, 8 of 10, types of cards, and the book names. So we got horrific creatures, number 1. So number 4 there, and this is number 3. And then we've got the Homebrewer's Guide to Cooking Concoctions. So lots of fun names. There, M, 5 of 8, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. all these book cards are identical. Now here we've got the reference cards, which you'll be using for your library's focus. Don't worry, we'll explain that in setup. And then also what will be your banned books or your prominent works. Here we've got the different locations. So as you can see, there's a name, whether the effect is instant, which is all the green locations, the number for the locations. The number is important in terms as to what's going to become a permanent location later on, and also how you're going to be dealing cards. So for example, if number 1 took cards, it goes before number 14. And let's just go further through this, and there's not many of them. There are a few locations with delayed actions, such as the garbage dump. Now these will happen during a delayed action step, so just keep that in mind. They don't go off right away. And then the local draft house is another one, and the auction house is another one. So getting an idea as to what will occur with the locations. Now here we've got all the different libraries. There's a quick reference as to how many cards of each type there are. On the side here, it's rather small, difficult to read. A place to put your library focus, the name of your library, what meeple you're going to get. So these meeples here are the special ones associated with your library, and then it explains what your library's special ability is. Primarily, it's the ability of your meeple. And then you've got your home locations. There are 3 of them, and it tells you what those are. Now on the back, just to keep things generic for when you're dealing them out, notice you can't see what the library is. So we've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different ones. Now I can't go through them all and go through all their powers. It is rather long. But for example, the witch lets you do something with regards to banned books. The automaton gives you a free home action, depending on where he's placed with his friendly assistants. The volcanic biblioteca gives you the fire imp, which lets you discard cards from locations to take free actions. So as you can see, everything is asymmetrical, and you're never really going to be playing necessarily the same way twice. Now you have a total of 4 colors for 4 players. The game is up to 4 players. You get 2 of these meeples when you're playing, but you can go up to 3, I believe, if you want to use a variant. Otherwise, the extra meeples that are included there are just in case you lose one. So each player is going to start with 3 assistants, 1 special assistant, and then 2 of their selected color. Next, we've got the scoring sheet right here, which you can use with a nice dry erase marker to tally score. I really do like that. It's far less wasteful than some other options. And then here we just have a first player marker, which is a big part of the game. Now, that being said, we've covered all of the components for Ex Libris. Now we're going to teach you how to set up the game and then how to play. Now we'll teach you how to set up Ex Libris. So we've got the board set up. We've got the Diviner's Hut, which will be our starting location. Next, we're going to need to set up our libraries. So we deal 2 libraries face down to each player. What we're going to do is then flip them over and select. So for player 1, we'll take the Clockwork Athenaeum. It's the one that works well in 2-player. Get rid of the Swamp of Scholarship. We're going to take a look at the other one. So we've got the Haunted House of Learning, which is pretty cool, and the Volcanic Biblioteca. So we're going to take that one. Haven't got a chance to use it yet. We take the meeples that are associated to those libraries. We then grab some of the meeples that are kicking around right here. So we start with a total of 3. Keep things fun. We'll set it up like this. So we've got all of the meeples out. Next, we need to deal the library's focus. So you take the reference cards, shuffle them up. You place 1 in permanent works, another in banned books. Now, the other ones you will deal, just for the fun of it, I'll deal 1 from the top, 1 from the bottom. So in a 4-player game, you deal all of those out. These ones right now, corrupted codices and monster manuals, will be returned to the box. So the Clockwork Athenaeum is going for spells and potions, while fantastical fictions is what the Volcanic Biblioteca is looking for. Now you keep those hidden. You do not want to reveal those cards. Next, we are going to take our reference cards here. And the book cards, I dropped them. We'll just stack them up in the two piles. And you want to make sure that the piles are about even. And then we're going to deal 6 cards to each player. So what I'll do is I'll take 3 from each stack. 3 here, 3 here, 3 here, 3 here. Now we'll take a look at the cards. So we've got a lot of good stuff for our permanent works. But you can see the 6 cards that we have in our hand. Not a bad start. Nothing that is, well, a few historical volumes that are banned, but we have some interesting cards for the first player. I'll just put that down off camera. Take a look at what we've got for... Oh, and I actually... No, that's 6 cards. Thought I was missing one there. So we've got our 6 cards. You can see, easy to tell what they are by the symbols. We'll stack that here. This is just a little off, so I'm going to try to make these piles as even as possible. Now, the player that most recently acquired a book is the one that is going to be the first player. So in this case, I'm going to put it to the Clockwork Athenaeum. Next, we need to deal out the other locations. So we've got location 4, location 5, and now that you saw that these were there, I'm just going to move them off camera. We'll put out the 4th location. Now we do need to set up these locations with cards on them. It goes in numbered order. So the community center being number 5 and the bookseller being number 10 means that the 4 cards that go to the community center get dealt first. Now you can take them all from one from each. It's completely up to you as long as they get dealt in proper fashion. Now, I am going to readjust the camera. So we will just slide down the Volcanic Biblioteca for right now. I wanted to have it a little bit more up close while we did and this is going to become a problem over here. In any case, you get the idea. We deal out the 4 cards. Got to make sure that they're all visible, really just the symbols. So we've got 4 there. And now we're ready to play the game. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is we did the up close setup. You saw everything. Going to readjust the camera, zoom out because we're going to need some more room to play this game. And then we're going to get into the how to play. Now we're going to teach you how to play Ex Libris. So I zoomed out. We needed more of a play space because we're going to be shelving books. I did just move the 2 stacks of cards off camera. We'll bring the player's hands on camera, at least for the moment. We've got all of our meeples, and we're ready to get this show on the road. So let's take a look at what we have with the Clockwork Athenaeum. We're looking for spells and potions. Now, what we're going to do is go through 2 rounds of the game, give you an idea as to how everything works. I'm just going to slide this up, actually. Looks a little bit better. And then we'll go through scoring, and Julie and I will come back at you with our review. So spells and potions, actually, we'll leave it face up. We can do the same thing for the Volcanic Biblioteca, just so that we get a good idea of strategy and what we want to do. Now, one important thing to notice, you'll see that there's a +3, +4, +3. That means that these areas are only good in 3-player plus games or 4-player plus games. Now, we're looking for permanent works. We're looking for spells and potions. So we've got a fairly easy decision that we can make. We can go to the community center. Now, when you go to the community center, you'll notice it's difficult to read. It says that you may take 1 card from this location, then give one of the remaining cards to an opponent. Both cards may be shelved. Now, just looking what we've got here, we've got A1, which is the first card out of the A's, which is just such a good card. Even though I'm looking for spells and potions, the fact that this is prominent works is good too. Now, we're not quite sure what we want to give to the other player, but seeing as banned books are negative points, this is the book that we'll give to the Fire Imp. And then we'll start by creating our bookshelf, which will go here. Now, for the sake of keeping things clean, we'll move this off camera, because when you're building a shelf, it can only be 3 cards high. So I actually think this third card's coming off camera, but we'll move the donation center for a section. It can only be 3 cards high, but there's no limit to how long it can go in terms of width. So that's just to give you an idea. Now, we'll have started our bookshelf, and as we don't have anything going underneath it, I'll place it here for the moment. Now, normally, if you're the imp, you would not necessarily want to shelve this card, but as S1 is available, very good card, you've got your fantastical fictions, which are worth more in terms of points than what you would get from the negatives for these historical ones. So you'd go ahead and shelve that one as well. And now this one is very much a no-brainer, because you've got shelf S3 of 10, never know if you can get another one. You go there, shelve that one, pass this one on, and taking a look at our cards, do we want to shelve this one? I mean, we've got some good cards with H's. I like to keep my hand sort of organized alphabetically and numerically, but shelving that M is not necessarily a bad idea. We've got a few options. So actually we would want to shelve it like this, because putting this here, that means we cannot put A, B, C, D, E, so on and so forth until we get to M. So that's not a bad thing for us. Now, the Fire Imp, what we can do is we may discard 1 card from a location to perform 1 home action, or discard all cards from a location to perform a home action, which is pretty cool. So we can go here, we can take a card, and looking at the cards here, we can shelve it. So for the case of this, I'm actually going to move their shelf over as well. Now, when you're building your shelf, you can go up or below. So we may shelve the card. We'll shelve the D on top of the S. That may not be the best thing. There are some cards and stuff that will come around later. And then we can use our ability to discard all of these cards, so they go to the discard pile, essentially rendering the bookseller useless. And we're able to take 2 home actions. Now, the home actions we're allowed to take is we may draw a card. So we'll draw a card, which is D5 of 7. Pretty good. And then we may shelve a card. So we've got D6 of 7. We drew D5 of 7. It's got 2 of the things that we're looking for. Perfect thing to go ahead and shelve. Now, what we'll probably then do, there's not too many great things for us to do here. So we'll go to the Diviner's Hut, and we draw 1 card for every assistant we place this turn, meaning we'll draw 2 cards. So we'll take these 2 cards, that's kind of lucky, A4 and 5 of 7, and they'll just be added to our hand. That's what happens with the Diviner's Hut, and we get to keep the first player token. This leaves only 1 option besides taking a home action. You can go to the donation center, and what this means is we are now able to discard 1 or more cards from our hand and then draw that many cards. And we may shove stuff, so as you can see, we can potentially sell a few things. This card is decent. We've got S, T, not bad. P is not a great card. We'll discard that one. We'll draw another card. Gives us a P that we maybe want, but right now it doesn't really work with the bookshelf we're building, so we're not going to want to shelve it. Now, all of our guys are placed. What we then do is, Sorry, I almost forgot. We've got the Clockwork Ethereum. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to use a special ability. For example, I'll just show you what it would have been. If he could have gone here, for example, what you then do is you're able to take a free home action for every friendly assistant on the same space as you. Now, as that's not the case, he just goes home, and we're going to take a look at just shelving a card. So we've got 1 of 7, 4 of 7, 5 of 7. Not the best, but we do get some points for shelf stability, as you can see here. So building, shelf that's like this, get us more points at the end of the game. So just one of those things that you do want to keep in mind. So we'll shelve a 4 of 7. We're good. So we've now gone ahead and we've completed the first round. What you then do, you can either place it next to the board. I find that there's enough room, I just put it on the board. We put the lowest numbered one as a permanent location. So for the first round, it will always be the Diviner's Hut. All workers get returned to the library. All of these are then discarded, but keep them close. They may come back into play. You then grab your locations and deal 4 new ones. Now we've got some of the delayed locations and the Librarian's Lodge, which is quite interesting. So we're going to just go straight into the second turn. Now it's still the Clockwork Ethereum that gets to go. So when you take a look at the local draft house, the player on space 1 below reveals 2 cards from each deck for every assistant on this location. In the order below, each player takes 1 card until none remain. So as you can see, this is just a fantastic way to get cards. And say any and all drafted cards may be shelved. So you cannot not go there. Don't forget, there are 2 decks of cards. So keep that in mind. That's a lot of cards. You're drawing 2 cards from the deck below for every assistant. So sorry, I thought I said each deck is from the deck below. So won't be that many, but you can get up to, 8 cards. Great way to get going. So first thing we're going to do is straight up go to the local draft house. Now this effect is going to trigger after all of the other instant effects have then triggered. Now notice we didn't have any cards to deal this turn, so the Imp's power is not that useful. Now we're going to go to I don't love the yard sale. I also don't love Librarian's Lodge right now, but if we take a look at, we've got only so many cards that were discarded. Not that many. The garbage dump is rendered sort of useless. So we're going to do the yard sale. So we get to reveal certain cards from our hand to try to entice another player to take them. Now the interesting thing is that for each of your revealed cards taken or shelved by an opponent, draw 2 cards and shelve any 1 card from your hand. So we're going to go there and we're basically there's nothing in here besides our fantastical fictions that we want to keep. So we're just going to offer these up. Now, we're looking, we got M, so not so bad to go before. We've got 2 of 3, but we need the permanent works. We may not have wanted to put these up, but in any case, it's just for the example. Those are going to get taken. Ours kept. So for the yard sale, then may draw 2 cards. So we're going to draw a total of 4 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take a look at what we got. Nothing great. The R could be shelved. U maybe a little bit later. So right now we just shelve. Go ahead and shelve the R. Keep the other ones in our hand. Now, it's interesting to go to yard sale. Big mistake though is leaving the draft house open on a game like this one. This gives the player 4 cards they could potentially shelve. Plus, playing the Clockwork guy here. Actually, we'll lie these down. Looks a little bit better. Means that he gets to take a free home action, which in this case will be to shelve a card. Tossing it back over to the Imp. So the imp is just going to be like, enough of that. I placed 2 assistants. I'm going to draw 2 cards, put them into my hand, and take back that first player token. Now, not many great things that we can do, but the Librarian's Lodge does let us move an assistant, and this is in any order, to a home space and then take a home action. So take a look at what we've got. Is anything we maybe want to redo? Maybe we want to get that back in our hand, maybe put something different. We've got a lot of higher in terms of earlier on the alphabet cards. So we'll draw a card. Oh, don't forget we've got these. We'll go ahead and draw a card. And then we may either swap one card from our library with any card from my hand, another card in the library, or be moved to any allowable position in the library. So if we're looking at what we want, we got A, maybe we'll place D up there, E, H. We got some good stuff in E and H. So we got E, 6 of 7, 7 of 7. So we're going to take that back. And that's the end of player 1's turn. So we got one last guy to place. We're going to do the same thing. Get a free home action. So we will draw another card. It's a W, which is pretty cool. I think we already have a W. So we got 6 of 8, 8 of 8. We have another R. We have R, 5 of 6, so that's perfect. We'll move 5 of 6. Get this back in using the ability of the Librarian's Lodge. Now we've ended the turn. All the workers return home. Well, assistants. We will now then take a look at what is the lowest, which is the Librarian's Lodge, which goes up. These will get discarded. We'll deal 4 new locations. And now the imp would start this 3rd turn. So there you have it. That's what you're going to be doing. Just haven't set those up. Don't worry about it. That's what you're going to be doing as you play Ex Libris. So we're going to go through scoring. I'll set it up as if it was a final library and how you would score it. We're going to clear off all of this sort of excess. I'll build out these libraries and you're going to go through the process. So keep it right here. We're going to be back in the turn of a page. Now let's go over the scoring process for Ex Libris. Now, the first thing that you need to do, obviously write which player is which. I apologize, I do not have the best handwriting. Now we need to check with regards to alphabetical order. Now players do also have the opportunity to just play a card, and if it's out of order, it's automatically going to be flipped. Or let's say, for example, it's something that you might get more negative points for. Not that it would happen in this case, but you can just willingly choose. Maybe something went wrong, only card you had, maybe it's alphabetical. You can willingly choose to flip a card and remove it from your scoring so you don't score points. Now, anything that is out of order gets flipped. So E, as you can see, J goes to H. This gets flipped. I've been wondering why it's there. If you're wondering, it's because it still counts for your shelf stability. So it's part of the strategy. You see the same thing here. We've got C, D, ends in B, but we've got better shelf. So there we go. So you conduct your alphabetical check. Now, when it does come to the end game, don't forget, there's a certain amount of cards that have to be laid down. Pay no attention to the amount that I've got here. It depends on the player count. For 2, it's 16. For 3, it's 14. For 4, it's 12. After you have someone gets to that 12, there is one final round. Next, you're going to tally up all of the different books that they have. So for player 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 corrupted codices. What we have for player 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corrupted codices. Now, they may or may not get points for these, so we just need to keep that in mind as we're making note of it. Now, fantastical fictions, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Player 2. For player 1, we've got 1, 2, only 2 of the fantastical fictions. Yeah, that doesn't look great. Sorry, I'm holding this. It's not the easiest. So historical volumes, we've got 1, 2, 3 for player 1. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 3 and 5. Now we might want to, probably want to highlight this, as that is our banned book category. Next, we're at the monster manuals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of those for player 1. 1, 2, 3 for player 2. Reference works 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for player 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 for player 1. Next, we count the spells and potions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And for the spells and potions, 1, 2, 3. So now we've tallied everything up. So we survey shelf stability. Then we award points based on the shelf. So in this case, this is a cube, 3 times 4. So that's a total of 12. In this case, we've got shelves 5 by 5, which gives us 10. Or we've got the 9. Always go with the higher one. Go with 10. So the prominent works. In first place, we've got, for the reference text, player 1 with 15. And then second place with 9 points goes to player 2. Now, you'll notice that only in a 4-player game is someone getting 0 points for it. Now, for the banned books, we get a -3 and a -5. We assess the categorical variety bonuses. Now, what this means is that we take the one that we've got the least of and we multiply it by 3 for the categorical variety. So that's the least of. So unfortunately, it is only 6 for player 1. And for player 2, the lowest is 3, which comes to a total of 9. And then we've revealed the library focus. So we take those cards times 2. So for spells and potions, that's a total of 20. And then with regards to the reference text, it comes a total of 24. So we'll just do the math right now. So we get total 18, 28 minus 5 is going to give us 23, 27, 47. Now I'm doing it quickly, so I might have got it wrong. So let's add up this one. So next we've got, I'm just going to do the -3 right now of this. Count that as 3, so that's 18. We count all that together. 18, 20, 30, 50. So as you can see, in the end, it became a very close game. Now, don't forget this is dry erase. You can just clean it right off. And that's how you do scoring in Ex Libris. Now, I know it's a little bit longer. Here at Dice & Dragons, we like to do the full thing. Now, keep it right here, as Julie and I will be coming back at you with our review of the game. So, Ex Libris. What did you think of the game? And I'll let you direct our review this time. I know that we both have quite a bit to say about it.
So we've played it, as you said, at 4 players and 2 players. I can definitely say I had more fun at the 4-player, and I think there's probably a couple different reasons for that. And I think we can get into it. I like the theme of it. I like the idea. I mean, I worked at a bookstore for 6 years. I still, alphabetize and categorize my books in the book in our library upstairs. That's still what I do.
We battle about this, by the way. Blu-rays, books, how we sort them. The one thing I get to sort is the game shelf.
Yes, I would have sorted the game shelf much differently, but that's Jason's demand. So that being said, this was an interesting theme, especially that it's in fantasy. There are a couple of things about the game production value that I like, and then there's a lot of things about the game production value that I don't like. And we can get into that afterwards, but I would say from a gameplay perspective, I really, really enjoyed the first time. I really didn't know. We've had this game for a little bit of time, and you've been telling me that I would enjoy it.
Yeah, it seemed to be the right type of theme, player interaction, but not the kind of thing where you can completely destroy someone's plans.
Yeah, but the way you described it to me, I'm like, yeah, okay. But we brought it to a board game day, and we played it, and I had a lot of fun. Not because I won, but just because it was a lot of fun.
She did win by a ridiculous margin, by about 30 points.
That being said, I found that at 4 players, it was a little bit more balanced. I think at 2 players, so part of the issue I found is that as I mentioned in the intro.
Before we go into the negatives, is there any other positives you want to talk about with the game and the game production values? Because I think that once we start on the negatives, we're probably going to expand from there. That's just the way our reviews go.
Well, I like the way that how the actions work and how the first player can move around depending on different things, and I like the different functionalities of the different locations.
Yeah, so the asymmetrical powers in the libraries, I find that's really cool because there's a lot of asymmetric powers, which is a good thing at higher player counts, and a bad thing that we'll talk about at lower player counts. Not all libraries are created equal.
I wasn't talking about the libraries. I'm talking about the locations that you can...
Oh, okay, yes, the locations as well.
They come out basically randomly. And then, one of the things that added a different dynamic is the fact that that lowest number location always sticks around. So as the game goes on, you have more and more locations that you have to remember. There's not just the new ones that come out, but the old one that stayed that is still in play that does allow you to continue using it. So sometimes, 2 really good ones come out at the same time, and you
don't get to keep it.
You don't get to keep it. It may come back into play when you sort it back in at some point. But that being said, I did enjoy that. And I think that the cards that you're picking up, the different books with the different type of books, it's nice. It's interesting.
Also, the names. Sorry to jump in there.
the names are interesting as well.
You don't have to read them, but they are quite hilarious. Some of them I really did enjoy that level of detail, and I think that's really what shines through is how much they spent in terms of just little touches to make this feel very cool. What did you think about the scoreboard being dry erase?
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I like that, and I like the little wood tokens.
Yeah, the meeples.
And like I said, the locations. I like the quality of the cardboard is pretty good there as well.
And were you continuing with positive? Sorry.
No, I was gonna say that's pretty much it from the positive perspective of.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna back up pretty much everything that Julie said. I could sort of repeat myself. By saying what she said already. In any case, yes. In any case, there's a lot of things that I like about the game. There's some stuff that does feel a little bit bloated. I like the aesthetic of the game board. Now, it does work as a place where you can move those locations up. I do find that you don't necessarily need the game board. It's kind of big, takes up some space. But it is still a cool element that you have.
It makes it clear where you're looking at the favorite book.
It helps with scoring and everything.
The favorite book and the book that they don't want.
Exactly. It could have been done smaller. It's just one of those things I think is a little bit of bloat, but it's good. And I like the artwork, and I feel that artwork actually helps enhance sort of the feel of the game. It brings you into the town. So there are people that like things that are a little bit more streamlined. If you like it streamlined, you might not like it. I actually do like the board overall. The production values are very good. I did find that the cardstock, actually, after taking a look at it a little bit more closely, it's thick, it's good, but I find whatever the finish is on it, the finish does seem to be able to get damaged. If you are going to be playing the game a lot, you're going to want to sleeve it. I love the fact that there is a solo mode for this game. I've not played it, but solo mode I think is always something that adds some value. Not always, but in a game like this where I think it's actually could be good practice for the game, like become more skilled at it, play with some different powers is actually a nice added advantage. And overall, I think Renegade did a really good job in terms of the quality of the components, except for one component, which we're going to touch on.
Well,
and I think we're going to go there just shortly.
Yeah, there's two things that really bug me.
Okay, well, we're going to get there. I'm going to wrap this all up, and we're going to let you take it away. So quality of the components, it's good. The problem that we were talking about is in terms of references, the reference cards, definitely had an issue with. Also, there is some serious issues in terms of the layouts, the typeface, as well as that not working with the art. So, with that being said, I think we talked enough about what we liked about the game. Actually, we didn't talk...
I think you just got into the negative.
No, we get there. I said enough about what we like, but we do enjoy the mechanics. Building the shelves, and I don't think we talked about that enough. Doing the alphabetical order, just the way that you can only stack 3 shelves high, and the clarity on the cards that really makes it easy to put things in order. The fact that you can put something out of order, and it's part of your strategy in terms of maybe scoring some more points or flipping something over to get that shelf stability is really cool. So the mechanically, I think this game is very sound. Now go ahead with your negatives.
Well, you basically already said it. It's the typeface on the cards for what they do. When you're playing 4 players and you have those 4 locations out, it's very difficult to read what's on the card, what's on the location, what it does. It's written in many cases very small. So you can't read it from far away, but also the typeface and the different color contrast makes it very difficult to read. They have little reference cards, but the paper is so thin.
Not gonna lie, I laminated them. Made a little glitch with laminating, tried to actually open up the lamination and redo it. No, the paper had actually fused to the plastic, which is actually technically probably a good thing for the quality overall, but they're the kind of things that could get bent, like crumpled, very cheap quality, torn. There's just a lot of issues with it, and I really was not happy with the quality of those references because they are pretty much essential. There's also, I'd say with the libraries, as we found out, the abilities of your librarian aren't clear. For example, what happened with your snowman.
Yeah, it doesn't really say on it. It says that, you can free somebody out, but it doesn't give details. Look in the instruction book and, misunderstood, spend half the game not utilizing it to its full potential. But I'd also say it's not just that, it's that, and we've talked about this in other games, the abilities are very unbalanced. Yeah. And when we're playing at 4 players, that balances out a little bit because the availability of resources of the different locations and the amount of people playing makes that it kind of evens itself out a little bit more. When we played 2 players, your library was so overpowered compared to mine that a couple turns in, I realized I don't have the luxury of trying to build a better library. I just have to keep up with you because your power allowed you to
get pretty much a free shelving action every turn.
So basically meaning he got to put down books into his library, whereas, I might have been able to hold on to some for a little bit longer and pick the better books from my library or plan out what I wanted to do with the library. I ran out of time and I ran out of that luxury because he had that extra power. So I had 2 players. That shows a lot more than when you're playing 4 players. Because our different libraries, when we played 4 players, basically balanced each other out a little bit more. And you have a little bit more not that you have the same number of actions, but it evens itself out a little bit more.
There's a lot more stuff going on. You do get some more action spaces that are available. I'd say that this is definitely a 3 to 4 player game. If there should have been more testing for 2 players, I think that's probably the best way to put it, is there should be a list of libraries that work well at 2 players because all libraries aren't made equal. And other ones that I felt, for example, I played the same library that I did at 4 players, which I felt that it was good, but I felt it might have been underpowered compared to others. In a 2-player game, I was like, holy cow, I am just cruising along here, kicking butt. No one's going to stop me. And when it came down to scoring, we didn't do the full score, but we just basically calculated a lot of it out and realized that, hey, we're in a good spot. I was in a good spot. And in terms of being in a good spot, to not do the calculation, it was quite clear who won the game.
Well, and it was quite clear
about the midpoint of the game.
At the midpoint of the game, and I said to Jason, we finished the game, and it happens. It's just, this is one of those games where I was like, you know what, I don't even care to finish this game at 2 players because it was obvious that there was no way I could catch up. It just wasn't going to happen. So I was able to finish my library in the sense that I got my 12 different cards out, but you already have been able to switch some out. You had extra ones out. So it's just, obviously when it comes to scoring, you were way ahead of me.
No, and just to reiterate once again, the typeface is freaking terrible. Like, it is not even a question. Like, it is abysmal. It's badly done. There should be a second edition of this game that comes out that fixes all of it, because I mentioned that my first play was probably about 2 to 2.5 hours. We had some people learning and taking their time. I got it. Like, I was also, my first game I was learning as well. But man, not knowing what those abilities were on the locations and then having to have people read them, trying to find the reference cards, because it's not a simple sheet. It's all these teeny little cards, as you saw for those of you in the components. If you want, feel free to take a look down below at the timestamps. Take a look at the components. You'll see what we're talking about. If you jumped ahead to the review, it is definitely a problem, which is a shame, because I think there's a great game here. I think a little bit more testing, as well as just some refining of the production values in terms of just accessibility, would have taken this game to a level that it's clearly not, because I think we're the only people that we know that has this on their shelf. And I actually picked it up at a liquidation bin, unfortunately. I think it's a really fun game. I love the mechanics. It's different. This just needs a little bit more love to bring it to where I think it should be. Mm-hmm. I think we've covered it.
I think so too.
So Julie, what is your score for Ex Libris?
I think it's a 7. I think, I could argue that at a 4-player game, it's a 7.5. But I think overall it's a 7. If it were to fix a couple of the different elements that we talked about, it probably could rate a little bit higher. But as it is, it's a 7.
I definitely think the game is a 7. I love books. I love the theme. It's very different. This is a game that if you are, I don't know if there's like a book file or whatever. You worked at a library. You tell me if there's like, cinephile. What is the equivalent for books?
I can't think of right now.
Okay, well,
a book lover.
If you're a book lover, this is the kind of game that I think you'll want on your shelf. It's definitely a 7. Solid, all-around game. It's easy to teach, I would say, in terms of what you're doing. A little hard to master because of the different abilities. But if you got a book-loving family, you should definitely maybe look at having this on your shelf. So we both agree it's a 7. Now, Julie, what time is it?
It's time to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you. But comment, be happy. We're happy when you do.
Yes, and you can also take a look down below in the video description for links to all of our social media feeds: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you want to see pictures of us playing Ex Libris, they'll be right there. And then popping up in front of us, you're going to see links to our latest release, and then a link back to probably maybe another Renegade game review, or maybe something that is competitive that we played recently, like Azul. Not sure. It'll be a surprise. You'll find out in a few seconds. So what time is it?
It's time to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
We gotta keep playing games.
Keep playing games. We're going to keep playing this one. Just not sure when it's going to come back out to the table.
When we have other people around.
Yes.